Welcome, I'm Nick Shaver here with TorchPrep, tackling question number 56 on test 3. Now, if you're getting this far, this is not one you would want to tackle on your first pass because it takes some time. This is not a question you're just going to knock out in 30 seconds. It's going to take some thought, it's going to take some patience, and this is one you're going to want to save for last and take your time on because it's not... it's simple if you see what they're asking you, but it's going to take some thought. So I'm going to pause the video and have you read this question. It's like a quarter of the page before we jump into it. Okay, now that you've read this question and your brain's hurting and your eyes like, what in the world? All right, so let's just jump into it, tackle it step by step, and show you that breaking it down, it really does make a lot of sense. So they're asking you, at what time t do we have half the area of the triangle? Okay, well, before we know when it's half the area, well, we got to know what the area is that it started with, right? So let's just start with that question. What does the area start with? You're like, I have no idea. I don't know what the height, oh my goodness. But guess what? Fortunately, they give us a nice little formula that we don't even have to know. We don't have to memorize it. They give it to you. Perfect. So we know that A and B are the sides that create in the interior angle all these questions, just to tell you that A and B are these two. So let's see what it starts off with. So we have 1/2 A times B, which is 300. A times B. And then we have sine of x right here would be theta. And you look at this and some of you might get confused because you're saying, wait a second, wait, don't I have to know what that angle is? This is the original area. You're like, how can I know what half of it is? Well, that's a really good question. That's a really good question. So what we can do is, let's just see what happens. Now, let's just see what happens. Let's just keep it there in the back of our mind. We know this is what the area is. And so half of this, so we have 150 sine theta. Half of this is 75 sine theta, right? So I've reduced the original area. Okay. Original area. Now, as you're looking into this, you see that again, we don't know exactly a number. But let's see what the math tells us. So what do we know about side CB? What function is it they give us? They tell us that it changes. It starts at a 15, and then so they give you f of t, this side length actually changes and gets shorter. It's equal to 15, just to make sure I'm right, I think it's minus 2t, but let me double yes, it's 15 minus 2t. So this is changing. So at 0 seconds, it's 15. At 1 second, it goes down to 13. 2 seconds, it's 11, and so forth. And it's shrinking and shrinking. And they want to know at what time is the area now 75 sine of theta. Okay, so to find that out, at what time is the area of the triangle 1/2. Now we got to use our A, B and stuff. A is unchanging, so A is still 20. And sine of theta is still sine of theta. But now I erase this. But our B is no longer 15. Our B is changing. And so now we just got to put in that formula of how B changes. And the way B changes is 15 minus 2t. Now we multiply that by sine theta. Now, this starts to look like, well, to make it really look like an equation, let's just take off the sine from both sides. And now we didn't even have to worry about that sine. Now we have an equation that you can solve. 75 equals to, so 1/2 of 20, 10. 10 times 15 is 150 minus 20t. Now look at that. All that words, all that stuff, just to have you solve this equation. If they would have given you this equation, the question would have been super easy. But they made you think about how to come up with this equation, so reason through it. Now, Now we can do your normal steps that you know. Subtract 150 from both sides. So now we're at negative 75 is equal to negative 20t. And then we divide both sides. So now we're at 75 over 20 is equal to t. But you're looking at that and you're like, wait a second. I don't see that. I don't see that. Two ways to do this. Obviously, just put in your calculator, 75 over 20t. Simplify the fraction and you'll get 15 over 4, which is letter H. Or you could divide both sides by 5. So up the numerator and denominator by 5. 75 divided by 5, 15. 20 divided by 5 is 4. Good work.